Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to be covering a real-world case study to demonstrate the value of D3 Finance's data analysis services. This was an engagement with a present client of mine who had little to no visibility into their sales or customer data. For example, they were spending over $10,000 a month on Google Ads and other advertising channels, but couldn't tell me the number of customers that they were acquiring on a monthly basis, the revenue or value generated from those customers, and they certainly couldn't bifurcate into the two market segments that they were servicing. For the business owners out there who are watching, I want you to ask yourselves a couple different questions. First, what are you spending on marketing each month? How many customers are you acquiring for that spend? Do you have any idea what it's actually costing you to acquire each customer? Do you know the value or revenue generated from those customers? And lastly, how long does it take you to recover the cost of acquiring those customers? The work product that I'm about to walk us through would effectively be able to answer all of those questions for you on a recurring basis. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kyle and I'm the founder of D3 Finance. Let's get straight into this. All right, everybody. I'm going to start this case study by walking through some of the data that I was given by my client and then show you ultimately how I came up with the metrics that I did for them. So this was information from their point of sale system that is effectively just the invoices that they billed their customers, okay? So you'll see here that I have a bunch of obfuscated information where I have a field for my invoice number, a field for my customer name, the customer's address, the service address. I randomized 3 different work products. This is the case of a waste business. And the 3 products that they sell is just going to be an extra tonnage charge, a standard charge, and an overload charge. I randomized the charges here and I randomized the dates here. The dates should run through the year of 2024 and I think 1 month of 25. But this product is great and it honestly isn't even that difficult from a data standpoint to put together. And I think you'll see that as we walk through this. The only other couple points here is that whenever you're calculating any kind of customer value, like customer lifetime value, you want to use a gross margin to kind of calculate as an input in that calculation. So in this particular case, I'm saying that number is 55%. And so basically I took this information from their POS and then I added a couple of different fields, which are grouped here. I had my customer do 2 things. First, I built this reference table for them so that way they could go through their different customers and effectively put them into 2 different buckets. So first I've got a segment bucket that's going to be, and the 2 options are simple. It's going to be individual and commercial. So I had someone on the accounting team. We had a handful of these already, but I went ahead and made sure that they confirmed all of these and did their job to audit them. Same thing with the acquisition source. I had their accounting team go through and see where those different leads came from. I just randomly generated this information as well using an Excel formula. I think the 3 options, I did a Google Ads, a referral, and another in order to categorize these different customers. This will come in really handy when we look at the acquisition analysis and the different segments as well. And so I just got a really simple index match that's looking up the customer name and bringing the segment over. Same thing with the acquisition source here. I added a column for the gross margin, which is really just the charges times the gross margin. And then the real magic in this came from this set of columns here. And the important point, I'm not going to explain how I got to this, but the important point is that I effectively used some formulas to identify what the month of first purchase was for each of the customers. Okay, and I'll show you kind of what that gives us in this cohort analysis in just a minute. And let's see, do I want to walk us through anything else? Okay, no, I think we're fine. Okay, the first part of the product that I want to show everyone is this cohort chart. So remember how I was saying that we identified the month of first purchase for all of our different customers? This is effectively showcasing the initial purchases for each of those cohorts. So for example, the March 24 cohort, the customers that were this was the first time they were purchasing from us, this $26,000 number right here represents $26,000 of gross margin that was generated by that cohort in the month, in this case of March, which was that cohort's first month of purchase, okay? The number next to it, this 27, represents the subsequent or recurring purchases of those same uniquely identified customers in April, and then same thing here in May, okay? So that's how you would read these three numbers, and you would ultimately read this row as the March cohort's gross margin generated over the course of the initial purchase month plus 2 more months is $93,000. Okay, same exact thing for the April cohort, obviously very different number here. Same thing for May, June, July, and the reason it's cascading is because these cohorts the purchasing behavior doesn't start until that initial month, right? Now, I have an arbitrary input in here where I'm over here in my data, I can change this number. I'm gonna change it to 4 really quick. I'm gonna update this and okay, that's good, they didn't collapse. Now you can see that I have 4 values here in a row. And so it's up to the user, but in this particular case, I wanted to show this owner, okay, hey, over the horizon of 3 months, what does the value of that cohort, what is the value being generated by that cohort, right? And so that's effectively what's being showcased in this grand total column. We have something very similar here where we can identify the number of customers by month that are being acquired. So it's kind of similar, obviously very similar. In this particular case though, it's just the 1 month and we just want to identify the unique number of customers in that cohort. Now we can start doing a little bit of math here to better understand what's going on in our sales data. I'm gonna collapse that a little bit. And so these 2 tables here, I think are the ones that really help my customer out the most. So for example, you can see here that I'm taking the cohort identifier here. I'm just grabbing the values from the gross margin generated here over those 3 months, the number of unique customers acquired, and then I'm just doing division to kind of see, how much value per customer we're generating, right? And then I've got some totals here. Make this larger for everybody. And so we can see here, the way you would read this and the way you might dive into it from an analytical standpoint is, hey, we acquired, you can kind of see this 2,400 is the highest one in these months. So maybe this is something for the sales team to kind of go back to and say, well, what were we doing what demographic of customer were we really honing in on? How did we have the success we had in this month so we can reproduce it, right? That might be one question that would come out of this. And then ultimately, getting an average, I think, is a really valuable number for owners to have for a lot of different reasons. There was a hiring exercise for a salesperson where this number came into play. Same thing here as well. So I did a very similar chart where I've got my cohorts. Let's just say this is an arbitrary number. I'm saying that they spent on all of their different channels $20,000 a month, and that this was the number of customers that they acquired. And so here you can see kind of an approximate acquisition cost per customer. In this particular business, we're just going to assume kind of a 1-for-1 where the cost here and the number of customers generated are, if you have a long sales cycle, that's not always true. You want to actually lag. Maybe you have marketing dollars happening in March, but then you don't actually acquire customers for 3 months from then. You'd want to change which numbers you're dividing. But in this particular case, and for simplicity's sake, we're just going to do a 1-for-1. And so you can see here the efficiency of your spend month over month. And then on I think it's like it's a 12-month look back basically is what's happening here. So they're spending about $531 to acquire each of their customers. And you can see here that we have a ratio of 3-to-1, where you're taking the value of the gross margin and dividing by that cost. This number in particular was important to have because we wanted to hire a new sales rep we wanted to see kind of what the commission potential would be if we structured this particular commission table the way that we did. We played around with the numbers a little bit. We saw how that commission structure fit into the overall budget. And then we saw, I think we had calculated some kind of, we think they're, we estimated that the new sales rep would be able to acquire a certain number of customers. And that would have meant that this number would have gone up by like $50 to $60 per customer. And so you can still see a really healthy ratio between like the two here. Let's say this went up by $60, right? It's still basically that 3-to-1 number. So using the math, I think that our owner had actually presented this to their board to come to the conclusion that as a group to make the decision for one, structuring the commissions the way that we did, and then two, obviously making the actual hire itself. Okay, the one piece that's missing here though is obviously the two segments that this particular business is servicing. So what's great about our data is that all we have to do, these are the same exact tables here. Let me fix these. Except we've got them filtered in this particular case. We've got them filtered by, I've got the commercial filter here. So you can see that this number is actually a little bit higher than our average when they're all grouped together at 1,700. The cost is higher as well at 550 roughly here. And then the customers that are individuals for this waste business, obviously a lot lower value. Now, oh, I messed it up. This right here, you'd have to change the cost number here to effectively allocate it to the different segments, right? So if I just keep, this is somewhat irrelevant at the moment. You'd have to say, I don't know, $18,000 for commercial and $2,000 for individual, or however you're able to like bifurcate those numbers. And then you could actually come up with a pretty effective cost per customer number here. But you can see the value difference, right? Obviously this business wants to target the commercial customers because of the recurring nature of that business. And then you can see the number of each of those as well here. So on the commercial side, here's those per cohort. Same thing for the individuals here. And then I wanted to show you what you can do with these individual cohorts in terms of like slicing them up. So you can see here that I've got this is my September cohort. You'll notice this 25,448. That's this number right here. So again, the way you would read this is September's cohort, the month of first purchases, the gross margin generated was 25,000. And this is kind of nice because you can see the customers in here. You can kind of see the recurring purchasing behavior happening like this for, I've got this bifurcated by commercial and individual, obviously. And then you'll notice that this is the full 40,000 that was generated for this cohort. But this is a great way to audit this analysis as well. Maybe you see a customer in here that's not supposed to be, whatever it is. But ultimately being able to slice these cohorts up into their different customer types and demographics helps a lot in terms of the sales team's targeting ability. And then lastly, I've got two pivot tables here that just break down instead of gross margin on this, I did the revenue. So you can see here, this is the revenue generated by these different service type categories. So the standard charge, the extra tonnage, and the overage. You can even see here what is this? Right, these are the cohorts. I think this is revenue generated. Yeah, revenue generated, and and it's you actually have the cohort values by the services. So you can see the standard charges and the cohorts, all of their purchases, right? Not just the 3 subsequent months. Same thing with the extra tonnage, same thing with the overload. And then this is just a simple breakdown between commercial and individual and the purchasing behavior of those products. Here. And then lastly, I think this one's pretty important too. This is breaking down the revenue by the acquisition channels. So here are the 3 acquisition channels we talked about earlier. There's the revenue from each of them. You can see that the cohorts, same exact table as the other tab. So cohort by revenue channel. And then lastly, I've got the different customer bases as well bifurcated here. Thank you for joining me today, everyone. I hope that case study made sense and that I explained it clearly enough for everyone. The 2 things I want owners to take away from this video is that whenever you're thinking about analyzing your own internal data, the 2 most important things are the quality of the data And I think the other category is basically like the simplicity or the intentionality of the analysis itself. Far too often I see businesses try to analyze data that just has bad quality or is not reliable enough, or they're trying to calculate all these different metrics that are really not helping them. Get to understand which metrics are going to be valuable to you, and then just get good at calculating those metrics, and then basically build from there. The second point I want to make is that data analysis doesn't have to be overly expensive. If you're doing it the right way, like I just mentioned, this product took a little bit of time to put together, but at this point, that particular owner just sends me the information every month. I update the data source, and then all of my tables update from there. If they need something specific, I can do additional analysis for them, but otherwise they've got exactly what they need on a monthly basis, on a quick turnaround and with very low effort and a very low billable at the end of the month. So if you're doing it the right way, this data and this kind of analysis really should not be overly expensive. I see companies spend way too much on data analysts that are trying to use Python code and all this stuff, when you can really just, if you need some code, you can use a macro. But otherwise Excel is, I think, more than enough. My name is Kyle, this is D3, and I'll see you on the next one.